Hello, I'm Caroline. Welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to take a look at this book, The Aztecs, and it's very interesting. I'll take a look at the back for a minute. It says, a comprehensive, informative and highly readable introduction to the Aztec civilization. Written by John D. Clare, an expert in the field, this book is based on the very latest research. So let's get started. Who were the Aztecs? In 1519, the mighty Aztec Empire covered 200,000 square kilometers of land and contained at least 3 million people who spoke more than 20 different languages. Tenochtitlan, the capital, was one of the biggest and most beautiful cities in the world. The Aztecs never called themselves Aztecs, although we'll call them that in this book. They were the Mexican nomads who invaded the area we now call Mexico in about 1100, but they didn't settle in Tenochtitlan until 1325. Aztec culture grew, flowered and died in less than 2 centuries. The Mexico were nomads, but in about 1300 they settled in a town named Culhuacan. There they sacrificed a local nobleman's daughter, cut off all her skin. The local people were horrified and drove them out, so they fled to a nearby swamp. The next day they saw a sign they had been waiting for, an eagle on a cactus eating a snake. They settled in the swamp and built the town of Tenochtitlan, place of the prickly pear, in about 1100. Izcotl, the first imperial Aztec ruler, disliked the idea that his people were barbaric nomads and destroyed all the writings that said so. Inside, the Aztecs claimed that they originally came from Aztlan, which is where the Toltecs came from. Huitzilopochtli, the god of war, shown right, told them to find a new home. They would know the place, said the god, when they saw an eagle on a cactus eating a snake. Historians are puzzled by the Aztecs' culture. In some ways it was colourful and beautiful, but it was also bloody and barbaric. This turquoise mask is beautifully made, but was used in an evil purpose. It would probably have been worn by priests in rituals. Toltec temples. When the Aztecs settled in Mexico, they found the remains of past civilizations. They discovered Toltec temple ruins, which contained huge statues like the one shown here at Tula, the Toltec capital. This architecture amazed Aztecs, who decided to copy the ways of these ancient peoples. In 1427, they asked Izcotl, a local prince who claimed to be descended from the Toltecs, to be their ruler. There was no farmland, wood or stone in Tenochtitlan, but there was salt, important in a hot country, and water. There were birds, fish and frogs to eat. Slowly the Aztecs grew more powerful and conquered neighbouring peoples. The Aztecs liked to pretend that they had a great empire, but they were never all powerful. They ruled with the help of 2 other cities, Texcoco and Tlacopan, and there were some towns that they never conquered. This picture shows warriors from Tlaxcala successfully fighting off an Aztec attack. This map shows the Aztec Empire at its greatest. The Aztecs ruled directly over the Valley of Mexico around Tenochtitlan, but they also controlled surrounding tribes. They let tribal leaders rule over their own people, but they demanded large tributes or payments from them in exchange. Life for the rich. The Aztecs conquered many cities, which were then forced to pay tribute. This meant that huge amounts of valuable goods came to Tenochtitlan. These included military outfits, beads, feathers, dyes, gold, cotton, peppers and spices, sacks of maize and cacao beans, salt and many other things. Some of these were used in public ceremonies, some were given to the nobles, and some were given to the local merchants who traded them for other goods. Tenochtitlan soon grew into a very wealthy city. There were only a few nobles in Aztec society. They had special privileges that were fiercely protected by law. Only nobles could live in two-story houses, for example. Any commoner who pretended to be a noble was sentenced to death. A nobleman was expected to be a good citizen, and there were strict laws that could be used against noblemen who behaved badly. This means some of them must have misbehaved. This gold pendant gives a clue as to why they did this. It shows Mictlantecuhtli, the Lord of the Dead, who ruled the hells under the earth. Souls who reached the land of the Mictlantecuhtli were destroyed forever, so some nobles decided to have fun while they were alive. An Aztec poem says, "We are only here on earth for a while. Come, let us enjoy ourselves." Moctezuma's Palace. This Aztec drawing shows Moctezuma's palace in Tenochtitlan. Inside, Moctezuma sits alone in the throne room, while below are the meeting rooms for his generals and advisors. Moctezuma's officials were expected to work, but in return they were given a fine house and lands, paid large salaries, and did not pay taxes. The most important was a man called the Snake Woman, after an important goddess. He was the chief minister who looked after the everyday affairs of government. In the Aztec Empire, only the nobles or the Pipiltin could become government officials. Moctezuma II. At the head of Aztec society was the Tlatoani. He was king, chief priest, and commander of the army. In 1502, Moctezuma II became the 9th Tlatoani of Tenochtitlan. Nobles who went to see him had to take off their fine clothes and put on cheap blankets. They had to enter barefoot with eyes lowered and bow 3 times, saying, "My lord, my great lord." Turning their backs on him was forbidden. Instead, they had to walk out backwards. Moctezuma II ruled from 1503 until he was murdered in 1520. Noblemen either inherited their titles or could be given them if they became a jaguar or eagle warrior knight. Moctezuma stopped this practice, however. Tribute rolls showed the amount and types of taxes that had to be paid by provinces for the Aztec capital. The Aztecs used symbols for numbers. A dot meant 1, a flag meant 20, and a feather was 400. The various symbols showed the type of goods that were to be sent to Tenochtitlan. Life for the poor. Aztec society had a strict class system. The Tlatoani was at the top, with the Pipiltin, or the nobles, below him, followed by the Maeshaltin, citizens. The Maeshaltin were free, although the word means subjects. They were organised into kalpuli, or groups, of about 100 households. Each kalpuli had a council of elders who kept the register of citizens, shared out the land and collected taxes. Nothing ever changed. People stayed in the class into which they were born, and Aztec children were cut on the chest to show which kalpuli they came from. In every home, mothers made a shrine of dough to imitate the temple pyramids. They burned incense and offered food to copy the rituals at the temple. These figurines may have represented gods, but they are often found with their heads deliberately broken off, so they may have represented victims who were sacrificed at the household shrine. Aztec peasant houses were built in groups of up to 5 and faced each other round a courtyard. They had mud brick walls and roofs thatched with leaves from plants. More than one family might live in the house. The houses were very small, and most activities, including cooking and eating, spinning, grinding corn, and socializing, would have taken place outside. At the bottom of society came the slaves, the Tlacotin. Slaves were given as tributes by conquered cities. Some were criminals whose punishment was to be made slaves. Sometimes peasants, ruined by drink, gambling, or disaster, would sell themselves into slavery in exchange for a loan to the rest of the family. Slaves could only be sold on if they were lazy, but the third time this happened, they were sold to the temple for sacrifice. This picture shows Chalticutlu, goddess of water, being attended to by slaves. Poor families had little furniture and only simple clothes. They owned a metate stone for grinding maize, some pots and a sleeping mat. However, archaeologists have now dug up large piles of rubbish outside peasants' houses, including imported pottery, obsidian, knives, grinding stones, and even bronze pins. Aztec peasants could find plenty of work, and goods continued to flow into the empire. Even the poorest Aztec families needed pots, a water jar, a bowl for soaking maize, a flat grid for cooking, storage jars, plates and cups. Also needed was at least one 3-legged cadjet with a crisscross pattern on the bottom for grating chilies. The Maeshaltin produced the food, built the roads, temples and palaces, and did extra work for the nobles. They paid taxes to the government officials to maintain the temples and schools, and they gave to charity to help the widows and orphans. Half of Moctezuma's income came from the ordinary Maeshaltin, who were not allowed by law to wear fine clothes. Food and drink. The Aztecs were expert farmers. Most houses had a large garden or a cow mill that Tlatoani even had a botanical garden where his gardeners grew plants such as tropical flowers and cacao trees. There were no horses, oxen, wheeled carts or ploughs, so everything had to be done by hand. In the hills, the Aztecs built stone walls that made flat terraces for growing crops. In the hot valleys, they built aqueducts to bring water from the mountains. The Tlatoani controlled all the water, which was one reason why he was so powerful. The Aztecs' diet included things that seemed surprisingly modern, such as popcorn, hot chocolate, and roasted peanuts. The Aztecs are a surprisingly varied range of food. Particularly favourites included kidney beans, sweet potatoes, avocados, maize, squash, chili peppers, red, yellow and green peppers, tomatoes, mushrooms, duck, fish, rabbit and snails. The pulque goblet. By law, only old women were allowed to get drunk, but at weddings people got merry on pulque, an alcoholic drink made from maguey sap. The rich enjoyed a drink made by boiling cacao, known to us as cocoa, beans and honey. Some rich Aztecs also smoked tobacco, holding their nose and sucking in the smoke. Maize was the main food in the Aztecs' diet and was planted each May. The farmer made holes with a stick called a coa and dropped in each seed individually. In July, all but the best ears were picked from each plant. The full-grown cobs were harvested in September. The maize was ground into flour and made into round, flat cakes called tortillas, which were eaten with every meal. In the swamps around Tenochtitlan, the Aztecs dredged mud from the bottom of the lake and piled it up to make allotments called chinampas. Along the edges they grew willow trees to make strong banks. The lake also provided a good source of fish, waterfowl and even blue-green algae, which was made into small cakes. The maguey plant was important for the Aztecs. The tough stems made good firewood or strong fence posts. Its leaves were used as fuel for fires and stoves, and also for thatching roofs. The leaf fibres were used to make the rough cloth worn by the peasants, and also for rope, paper, sandals, nets, bags and blankets. Maguey sap was used to make a sweet syrup or for pulque, and the spines made perfect nails and needles. Even the grubs that ate the leaves were a tasty treat. The Aztecs believed that all food was given by the gods and held 3 festivals to help the maize grow. In May, the seed was blessed in the temple of Chicomacoatl, the goddess of corn, seen here with one of her attendants. In July, the young cobs were offered to Ixilongnen, a maize goddess. In September, a harvest festival was held, when a priestess dressed as Chicotemocal threw dried seed at the crowds. People tried to catch some to add to the seeds they were keeping for the following year. Art and culture. Aztec art and architecture was designed to remind people of the power of the gods and the strength of the Aztec Empire. The Aztec capital, Tenochtitlan, became a city calculated to impress strangers. Reached by 3 causeways which crossed the lake from the mainland. Tenochtitlan was built on a grid pattern, with the main street running from east to west, copying the movement of the sun across the sky. Aztecs believed it was the center of the earth. "500 years before the arrival of the Aztecs, a great city had existed in the Valley of Mexico. It was called Teotihuacan and was about 80 kilometers northeast of Tenochtitlan. When the Aztecs migrated to Mexico, they saw the city's ruins and were so impressed that they decided it was the birthplace of the gods. They adopted many things from Teotihuacan, including its pyramids, its gods, Tlaloc and Quetzalcoatl, and the practice of human sacrifice. Rich Aztec nobles would decorate their palaces with stone carvings, just like the designs found in Teotihuacan, seen in this picture. This drawing shows the temple area in Tenochtitlan. This was the main temple, with its twin shrines in Tlaloc, the god of water, on the left, and Huitzilopochtli, the god of war, on the right. The temple of Quetzalcoatl, the god of priests, is in the center, with rings like the coils of a snake. The Tlachtli court was situated next to the temple of Quetzalcoatl. The skull rack was next to the Tlachtli court. One Spaniard worked out that the rack contained 136,000 skulls of sacrificial victims. This small platform was for gladiatorial sacrifice. A captured warrior would be tied there and given a wooden club. A fully armed Aztec warrior would then fight him to the death. Gruesome Goddess. This statue represents the awesome goddess Coatlicue, the mother of Huitzilopochtli, a god of war. So its symbolism is gruesome. She wears a necklace made of a skull, hands and human hearts. Her skirt is a mass of snakes, and her feet are huge animal claws. Where her head has been cut off, blood pours out from in the form of serpents. This pretty grasshopper was a symbol of Chapultepec, a grasshopper hill, just north of Tenochtitlan. The Aztecs stopped here during their time of wandering. Chapultepec was also important to the Aztecs because of its springs of fresh water, which were taken by aqueduct to Tenochtitlan. Children. The law required every Calpulli, or group of households, to build schools for teenagers. Girls were taught how to sing and dance at the religious festivals, while boys helped with building work and trained to be soldiers. Noblemen's sons went to advanced schools known as Calamacacs, where they learned about war and religion, but also studied history, medicine, mathematics, the calendar, astrology, and law. There were strict rules for behaviour. Boys were not allowed to drink. Aztec girls were expected to be modest and had to look down at the floor at all times. Aztec education taught children to obey. They were made to think like everyone else, not for themselves. No one was allowed to be different. Punishments. Punishments for Aztec children were very harsh. This father is holding his son over a fire and forcing him to breathe in the fumes of burning chili peppers. The speech comma tells us that the child is also being given a long lecture as he is being punished. The Codex Mendoza was a collection of drawings of native customs and tributes put together for the Viceroy of Spain after the conquest. The pictures in the Codex about bringing up children use the following key to show age and food. The red counters show the age of the child, and the yellow chips show the number of tortillas they were allowed to eat in a day. Education for Aztec boys centered on learning skills that they would need in later life. They also needed to be able to operate boats and canoes in order to work on the Chinampas. This naughty son, aged 12, has been stripped naked, tied up and thrown into a muddy puddle into the street. His father is scolding him. Here's a farmer teaching his 13-year-old son how to carry loads and how to handle a canoe. This picture shows a farmer teaching his 14-year-old son how to fish. At this age, the boy would have been eating 2 tortillas a day, so it was important that he earned a living. A girl's education. Most Aztec education for girls took place in the home. From an early age, a girl would be taught skills that she would use daily in her role as a homemaker in later life. At age 12, a daughter would be taught to grind maize and make tortillas, the first job she would do every morning when she became a mother herself. At age 13, this girl is being taught how to sweep the floor. Sweeping was seen as a religious duty. Aztec women believed that when they swept up, they were helping the gods to purify the world. Weaving was a woman's job in the Aztec Empire. Here the mother is teaching the 14-year-old girl how to use a backstrap loom. She has attached one end to the wall and has strapped the other end round her back. By moving backwards and forwards, she can tighten or loosen the threads. War and weapons. The Aztecs were a fierce military people who glorified war. The growth of the Aztec Empire depended on war. Its history said that the god of war, the Huitzilopochtli, had told the Aztecs to leave Aztlan and conquer the land. The empire's success and wealth depended on tribute payments from conquered cities. The Aztecs believed that the gods needed a constant supply of blood sacrifices to keep the world from falling apart, and wars were a good way to provide the victims. A warrior's shield was probably made of wood covered with leather and decorated with feathers stuck on with bat dung glue. It would probably have given only limited protection during a battle. Each Kaupoli sent a regiment of men to fight in the army. There was no uniform. Each soldier dressed as he wanted. This warrior wears sandals and a coloured skirt, a feather headdress, and a thick quilted cotton bodysuit. He would probably have removed everything except the bodysuit and sandals before fighting. He carries a thick two-sided weapon called a magahutl that was so effective it could cut off a man's head with one blow. The two highest Aztec military orders were the Jaguar Knights and the Eagle Knights. Only warriors who had taken many captives could belong. They were given extra land and privileges and took a special part in the ceremonial dances when captives were sacrificed. This ceramic figure is a life-size sculpture of an eagle knight. It was found by an archaeologist in the Eagle House next to the Great Temple in Tenochtitlan. Aztec commanders often started a battle with a hail of spears. This picture shows two Aztec spear throwers, or atlatls. Soldiers used these like a sling. Once the spear was placed in the atlatl's groove, it could be thrown with great force. One of the strangest Aztec activities was Exochicotl, or the War of Flowers. The warriors fought to show their skill and to take captives from their rivals' community, rather than killing each other. Afterwards, the captives would be sacrificed. Their arms and legs would be given to the victorious Aztec soldiers to take home and eat. This was seen as a way of sharing their lifeblood with the Huitzilopochtli. And that's where I'm going to end this video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it interesting, and if you did, please join me again soon for another one. Thank you for watching, and